to welcome Rick Savage to the show. Hello, how's it going?
What's going on, Rick? How you doing?
I'm going good. So you grew up in Austin, Texas, correct?
Yeah. I've been in Texas my whole life here.
What about the history of professional wrestling in Texas? Is that something that made you interested in professional wrestling growing up?
Yeah. So when I got into that area, my dad was breaking in about 1999.
Okay.
So I was really big in watching wrestling there. And when he finally got into it, we'd go around to these different shows in Texas all the time. So they were really exciting for me when I was a kid, but that was kind of short-lived at that point.
Right.
Only a little while for me. And then, my brother ended up not going to any more wrestling shows after that. So I kind of forgot about it for a little while. Was doing my own thing here, and then up until about last year. Right before last year, January time, I kind of started like diving into the idea about it and stuff like that, and kind of took off from there.
Do you mind telling us who your dad is and stuff that got you into it?
Yeah, Bobby Too Bad.
Okay.
So he's a Texas wrestler that was mostly around the Houston area, but he traveled around pretty much all these small towns in Texas. The worst one I probably been to was probably Hare, Texas. There's like a population like 200 people. Awful middle of nowhere place. So I didn't understand like the road life type deal as a wrestler until now. But when I was a kid, it seemed like a cool thing to do to travel with your dad and stuff like that. But it was these towns are not great sometimes.
I mean, those small towns, they bring in sort of, independence sometimes because people can't get out to those big cities, you know what I mean, to witness that stuff. I have a son. Now, I work somewhat with some independent companies here, working the camera and doing some play-by-play. And my 7-year-old son is finally, coming on the trips with me all over the place. And while he may not be interested, there is sometimes, that bond with him and trying to have a lot of fun with him hanging around the wrestlers and stuff like that, and getting to meet people, and other kids around his age that are there that might be there with the boys and stuff.
Right. Yeah. When I was getting into it, we used to take pictures. We didn't have a video camera at the time.
Right.
This was a long time ago. So we'd take Polaroid pictures and stuff, and I'd get there with my brother. We'd help set up the ring, break it down, set up all the stuff for like the guard stuff and the chairs and stuff like that. So no stranger to that ring crew work and all that. So that was fun at the time, doing that stuff, putting it together, and then we'd get to tumble around in the ring for a little bit before the show. So it was kind of worth that while putting the ring together and doing that before.
It's pretty funny that you say that, because while it's a lot of fun, I do have a 16-year-old as well. It's kind of similar in a way that, he does when he's in town. He lives out of state with his mom. When he's in town, one of the things is he loves going to shows, and he if they need a hand, he's always right there to help break down the ring, and he thinks it's the greatest thing on earth. You know what I mean? So he has a blast being able to break it down, put it in the truck, or put it in the next room and put it back together. So he's getting to learn a little something about wrestling that maybe most people don't really,
Right. Yeah, I think what kind of makes it fun is seeing like the little bit of the behind the scenes thing that happened, like putting the ring up and stuff like that. Kind of gives you a little bit more of an appreciation of like what they do and stuff. So I just thought it was really great. And me and my brother would just like run little spots here and there.
Yep.
So we do it in our room, but like doing it in the ring was like so much cooler. Like doing these spots in the ring in front of the other wrestlers and stuff like that was kind of fun, because it not only showcased like we were having a good time, but also taking it serious and like doing these spots and like trying to do them correct and stuff like that. So one of the things I remember for sure was doing that. Like you can't really take those kind of memories away. They're really great.
Yeah, it's creating memories with your children and doing stuff like that, being part of the business like that. It's like you said, it's something inside that's just really awesome. You know what I mean? You'll just remember them as you get older. Yeah.
It's something that's maybe my kid might get into it at some point, but he's a little too young for all that stuff. But it's a little bit too dangerous, risky for him at the moment. But he had some school project thing where they asked, like, what did he want to be when he grew up? And he said a pro wrestler. He wants to be my tag team partner. So little heartstrings tugging at, So I was like, all right, cool. I'm trying to.
No, that's awesome, though. That's really cool, though, that he's, creating that bond with you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, he loves watching my matches. So that's the fun part there.
Does your kid not only watching that, but like, does he watch professional wrestling as it is? No.
So I try to watch a little bit with him, just here and there. So he'll sit there and he'll kind of watch for a little bit, but he won't really get too interested in it. But he'll sit and watch one of my matches. He thinks they're fun. It's
funny because my kids, where they live, their mom, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way, really, but their mom is like a born again and does not allow them to watch certain things. You know what I mean? Like she's very strict. So when they come up here, they really don't know much. They won't watch like mainstream wrestling because they'll come up and they love going to like local indie stuff. And that's, to them, that is professional wrestling. Anytime they try watching something on TV, they just can't like really get into it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's a little different because it's there's less story stuff going on.
Right.
There might be storylines that are happening, but there's less story stuff or filler going on for the show. So he came to one of my shows that was in Austin. He went to my first match and went to a show in Austin. And while he watched some of the show when it was happening, he wasn't really paying attention. He was running around doing the stuff, wrestling around with other kids. And then when I was wrestling, he'd sit there and watch it. So it was just kind of cool for me to have him sit there and actually pay attention to what was happening.
How old is he?
He's about to turn 8 this year.
Okay. Oh, see, my son's going to turn 8 in August as well. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah. So, and one of the things is like after the shows, he likes getting in the ring. They let the kids in the ring, because if one of the shows is at the school, one of the school facilities, they let the kids in and just run around, run the ropes and stuff like that. And to watch the kids do that, it's like they think they're like superstars. They think it's the coolest thing on earth.
Yeah, it's a blast. Yeah, he got into my first match. He got into the ring for a little bit, but there was a bunch of kids that started getting in the ring. I was like, let's get out because they're starting to get a little too rambunctious and stuff. I don't know these other kids and stuff like that. So more on his safety for me to take care of him than watching him try to do that.
So I saw that you trained with Necro Butcher as well. Is that
correct? Yeah. So that's probably when I was like maybe 11 or 12 or so. Necro had a camp down in Killeen that my dad would train at. So I'd go in there and watch them do the stuff, and like I'd get in there when they take breaks and stuff like that, or do small little stuff in there. And Necro used to beat my ass when I was a kid too. So that was great. It was great.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Were you interested in his style of wrestling at all growing up?
I enjoyed watching Necro work because it wasn't like it is now. But back then it was just like a little bit. It was just like hardcore matches, so like it wasn't anything like too crazy. But watching him do his work, it was just like it was really tough. Like it was hard. Like there wasn't any like soft sound in his matches, and it was very eye-catching for me, especially they start to get color and stuff like that. So it was very interesting to when my dad would actually work him or stuff like that, because I would either pay attention to what he was doing because it was just like a very cool stipulation match, or he was working my dad, so like it was just trying to watch like, okay, what's gonna happen next, what's gonna happen next type thing. So I even still watch some of his old matches now. I've got a bunch of VHS tapes that my dad gave me, so I still watch them every so often. I'll catch them on YouTube or something like that. But he is a very interesting style of work. Very cool with the psychology, even though it's deathmatch stuff now. But there's still a lot of psychology whenever Necro does his matches.
I am not necessarily a fan of that style, deathmatch wrestling. I'll just say that. It's not. I'm more of a traditional style, or I like watching guys like the Steiner Brothers, stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's like, hardcore wrestling, you know, that was, he was early on kind of in like the hardcore before the death matches. Like now,
Yeah.
everything is they got to outdo everything they've done the last time and stuff like that. I mean, there's just some of that style is just it's grown to be really insane. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's when I was watching, it's just hardcore matches then. So like deathmatch now, I'm not really a big fan of like the deathmatch stuff because if it's gonna be a deathmatch, it needs to actually be a deathmatch, like barbed wire ropes, barbed wire like straps, traps, stuff like that. There's light tubes and stuff. But by the time they're done, they need to be a complete bloody mess, like just trashed. Like that's a death match to me. Like everything else is just like a hardcore match with like extra extremities hanging off of it most of the time. So light tubes is a big thing, which it wasn't a super big thing when I was a kid.
Right.
There may be like one light tube spot, but like now it's just everything is light tube because it just visually it's crazy looking. It sounds crazy. It's not really my thing. Light tubes aren't my thing. So like I'll do hardcore stuff, sure, but glass is just not really my forte. I'm just not for me.
Glass scares the shit out of me. If I was a wrestler, to be honest with you, like I've seen, you know, many spots, like you said, like the light tubes, or if you've seen like that time Moxley and what's the guy's name, Omega, you put him through a glass table, like that stuff will get you, and it will get you real good. You know what I mean? The glass, so it's kind of like scary to think about the working with glass, and that, and now it's things have evolved from, you know, tables all the time to people using like doors and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I'm not really sure how that worked out. So,
this happened to me because I requested table stuff and like got doors, and I was like, all right, well, I guess. So yeah, it was just like harder to get those actual tables to use. So like the wood's just like scarce to get them. So like I was like, all right, I guess that makes sense. I mean, they make the same type of sound, gets almost the same type of effect, but putting somebody through a table versus a table would definitely look way better in my opinion. But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. How would you describe your style to somebody that's never seen you before?
Now that I've kind of got my feet wet, probably I would say in between brawler and high flying brawler. Like I'll take risks. I fly around a bunch, you know. So I've got shit I can do that most normal big dudes don't do. You'll see like a very rare small amount of like big dudes do some like high flying stuff. But I grew up with like, well, I was watching Hot Stuff Hernandez, not Hernandez now. I'm talking about Hot Stuff Hernandez. When he would do the suicide dive over the top. So like that, like watching Undertaker do stuff like that. So like, I'll bust those out here and there, you know, and I'll take some little kind of like risky bumps and stuff like that. So yeah, I would just say like I'm like a high flying brawler almost now at this point.
Yeah.
What's
been? Have you suffered any injuries throughout your time? How long have you been wrestling? That's the other question I got to ask you.
We're going on 11 months now.
Really? That long? Watching videos of yourself, I wouldn't know that. Literally, I've been, you know, studying for this podcast here, and I would have thought you've been in the ring a lot longer than that. I mean, then again, I guess it explains that you working with your father and stuff.
Yeah, a little cheat code there. Just, you know, going into the business like when I was like younger. I wrestled him at least 3 different occasions when I was a teenager. When I was like 20, about 20, and then like maybe like 23 or so, was the last time I wrestled him. So, no stranger to the ring there at that. But other than that, I didn't do much of anything but just like watch wrestling. So, I had a client of mine suggest I get into it after I retired from powerlifting. I was like, I don't want to do anything physical like that. And then I went to training school with my tag partner Damo up in Fort Worth, where the Manimal's at Texas Rough House, and they kind of just let me kind of like get the rust off and work around, get my steps back and stuff like that. I was like, you can come back anytime you want. I think you got something here. So I was like, I'll think about it. And then I thought about it on the drive back and I was like, maybe I should give this a go. This is actually it was actually really good time, just like kind of getting back into it, just like remembering doing certain stuff and like remembering the certain steps to do. And yeah, it was a very interesting time there last year, and I didn't know what I was trying to do, and just kind of took a big dive into it. I was like, all right, let's see what happens.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your powerlifting career? I saw that you did that. You and why did you decide to retire from that?
So I started 2015. I had my first powerlifting show, and I did it just because like a friend of mine suggested I should try it. I was trying to do bodybuilding at the time, so I was like, "Nah, I don't want to do this." And she was like, "Oh, just give it a shot. Just do one because like my lifts are pretty strong in the gym, and they were pretty close to like the state records for the deal." So I did the first meet and was like, "Oh, this is actually really really fun." So 4 weeks later, I did another meet with a bunch of friends of mine and stuff. So while I continued to do it, everybody else just trained. So I kind of like started taking it a little bit more seriously. That first year or so, about 10 months, I did about like 7-8 powerlifting meets that time, and got myself to Vegas, to a Worlds meet, got myself to an expo show, ended up putting myself, I want to say it was like in the top 10 when I was the first year starting. So I did about 6 years, give or take. I ended up being the number 2 overall in my weight class of 308 in wraps and sleeves in 2017, which is pretty interesting. I broke the American record for USPA 2017, and I've had a couple like expo different shows that where I could do like exhibition type events that I also got known for, like doing a 2,005 pound total in 33 seconds, deadlifting 600 pounds for 65 reps. Like, so those are a couple things I got known off of also besides doing the pounder thing. 2018, I tore my patellar tendon. So that was my first major injury that I've ever had. Tore that, and then rehabbed it, got back, did another meet a year later, which was pretty crazy in itself. And then 2021, about April, early April, I tore my rotator cuff. So then that was the second major surgery. So at that point, I was like, okay, that's enough. I'm not doing this anymore. Just becoming too risky. The amount of weight I was doing for my body was just like, no, I'm not doing it. So that's why I wasn't going to do anything more physical at all. And then wrestling, go figure.
Isn't that always the way though with like sports? You know, a lot of guys quit football and end up in professional wrestling, which I also saw that you were actually into football as well too.
Yeah, went to UMHB. It's a college here that was Division III, and pretty great and very interesting school. So I did that for a couple of years. That was great, but it just wasn't for me. So I went and started doing everything else, and then try to get into the bodybuilding thing. Was getting ready to do a bodybuilding show, and then decided to just switch everything up, try to get bigger again, and then fell into the powerlifting thing. Took that serious for a little bit. It was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna retire. I've had enough. My body's hurting all the time, and then got talked into doing this wrestling thing, and it's not like it's a little easier on my body most of the time, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't have 1,000 pounds kind of crushing my spine, so like that's great. That feels great, just everything else isn't wonderful, but not having 1,000 pounds in your back feels 10 times better than what I'm doing in wrestling. So it doesn't bother me at all. This is crazy.
How was the transition for you though? Was it easy, or was it
So when after I had my rotator cuff surgery, I kind of just let my training go. It's the first time in like what's some odd like 17 years I've ever like missed training, but I was injured, so I was kind of just like rehabbing, and then just like taking time off to just recover. So I can't say I was in like the best shape conditioning wise when I started. So when I went to that first deal at Texas Rough House, I was getting blown up in like 5 minutes of just chain work. So I was like, okay, I can't do this. This isn't gonna fly. So I decided to write a program for myself to get myself in condition for my first match. So I took about maybe 8-10 weeks of work of just doing specific lifting, and I put Olympic lifting back in my stuff, a bunch of conditioning work that kind of mimicked in-ring stuff for me. So the first maybe 3 weeks were probably the worst. It was awful. It was awful. That transition from doing just powerlifting stuff and getting into that was terrible. My mobility has been it gotten worse. It was terrible. My flexibility and mobility was just awful by the time I got done with the powerlifting stuff and the rehab and the surgery and all that stuff. So getting that back in there, and I'm surprised myself that I was able to get all that stuff back and then some, which it's pretty wild. But yeah, it took a minute to get adjusted to the cardio that I kind of need for the ring stuff, and I still train like that here and there, but I changed up the way I train now just to get certain stuff done during the week, kind of addressed. But I don't necessarily need to get any bigger now at this point.
Right.
So just kind of need to get more, a little bit more lean what I'm doing now. So not doing anything too crazy, but it's definitely way different, and it's less work, way less work than I was doing in powerlifting now at this point.
What was your first match like, and who was that against?
My first match was against my tag team partner now, against Damo. So we had a little small segment in a big show at IHWE in Fort Worth. It's probably maybe about 3.5 minutes, if that, for the match. We had this little angle because it was the powerlifter come against another powerlifter, strength athlete thing. So the match wasn't terrible. There was a small thing in psychology, right? So I didn't know what it was like to work a TV match like I could do now, but we try to get a small bit of the psychology into that ordeal, and it was interesting to say the least. The people got to see two bigger type athletes, and I was way fatter at that point. So definitely, when looking back at the video, I'm like, man, I was so round at that point. But it wasn't bad, but it gave me the itch to okay, I need to get more of this in-ring stuff in front of a bunch of people, because it's a whole lot different than doing it. It's in training and stuff like that in a building that nobody's at. So I think this was March 31st, I had that match, and then I didn't have the next match until I think maybe April 20th or so. So a couple weeks or so later, a few weeks later. And then since then, I had a match every week almost after that.
So you've been keeping busy since that time.
Yeah, I've had to schedule myself off and not take bookings. I could have easily done every weekend all last year, but I had to take some time off. I actually did get injured there for a minute. I tore my adductor in June. So picking up, getting started and stuff like that, I had this injury. So I took a few weeks off, rehabbed it, had to do a show, re-injured it again, and then took another couple weeks off, and then kept with the rehab, and had to change the way I was actually doing my in-ring work. Because when I was younger, I could do a bunch of cool high flying type stuff and very explosive type stuff, jumping, spinning wheel kicks and shit like that. So I was trying to put that back in, and was doing that, and it was going all right for a minute, but just the amount of damage and stuff that I've done to my body over powerlifting, it's no, you can't do that. You could do that, but we're gonna shut you down when you do it. So that was great. So I changed the way I might do some of my style there about around in August, but once I finally got healed from everything, I added stuff a little bit back, like the standing moonsault, frog splash, and like the suicide dive on the top. Small stuff, not too crazy, but real simple stuff I could do. And like doing stuff that's like lateral movements left and right, I kind of stay away from doing. So like the jumping, spinning wheel kick stuff where I got to do lateral, I just stay away from that as much. It's just rather not risk it at this point. Even if I feel healthy, just rather not risk it.
Who would you say that influenced your style when you're using maneuvers like that? I mean, growing up, I guess in the '90s, it could have been a lot of different people. Maybe Owen Hart or X-Pac or Sean Waltman. It could be anybody. Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, I was definitely a big fan of X-Pac and his spinning wheel kick. So like that was one of the things I always wanted to do. I thought I do a really good one, so I wanted to keep that in there. But at the expense of me not being able to do wrestling, I just took it out. So. Say when I was younger, so probably Mike Awesome would be the top influential one in like the high flying aspect because he was so big and doing all that stuff. So there's a few things here and there that I do that I got from Mike Awesome just because like they're kind of simple, easy stuff for me to do. So it's nothing too crazy, nothing too wild, but. He was probably one of the bigger ones. Although I didn't really watch a lot of his matches then, like I do now. But a lot of the ECW stuff would probably be stuff I've kind of pulled more inspiration from in WCW.
Like possibly the matches with Masato Tanaka and ECW, right. Which to me, that series was just Mike Awesome was a very underrated talent.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That guy, and it's very sad ultimately what ended up happening to him, literally, because at that time period, literally, I was like, man, to me, I was like, man, I said to my friend one day, that's such a terrible name, Mike Awesome. Sounds so corny, right? But my friend goes, but no, he really is awesome. I said, I guess it makes sense then, And literally after that, I watched his stuff in FMW and stuff, so. Like I said, it's such a shame, but that guy literally was an innovator for guys that size. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And his WWE career wasn't necessarily all that great. His WCW career was probably even worse with the gimmicks that they put him through. And he was probably one of the best wrestlers of that era of the late 90s. And ECW really let him shine in that. But if you think about it, he could have gone really far, provided booked properly in the WWE, possibly becoming the world champion, but they were, obviously set on the probably 3 or 4 guys that they had in that title picture.
Yeah. Which is weird because he's damn near the Brock Lesnar of that era in that aspect because he was 290. He can fly around and do a bunch of crazy stuff, way more so than Brock could do. I know Brock was doing like shooting star press and stuff like that, but
if he doesn't land on his head though,
right? But Mike was doing slingshot, jumping off the top rope over the barricades and stuff, and doing a bunch of crazy stuff quite frequently in his repertoire. So. He could have been what Brock Lesnar was now at that point. That could have been his ordeal. They could have put him that way, and it just didn't.
That's a great comparison. I never really thought of it like that before. So that's a great comparison now that you say it. But yeah. What do you? What else? Is there any other guys around like that time period similar to him at all? Or?
Not. I mean, well, we're talking about Bam Bam Bigelow and like Vader and stuff like that. They definitely fly around, but like not in that kind of like svelte physique style that I really was like kind of glued to. I don't know if it was just like the mullet or just like the way he just like he was just so intense whenever he did the moves that I was just really always glued to like stuff he was doing. But I pull inspiration and stuff from like Rhino, Raven. Go in Japan, Shuji Ishikawa. So like there's like small bits here and there that for people that I've not only just seen like when I was younger, growing up, where I kind of felt like was more like myself, and now my actual size now that I kind of just like blended in together when I think about it. I like Mike Awesome stuff when he was in Japan too. So like,
Yes.
It's just like a little bit more ferocious in nature compared to what happened to him later on. But that's the kind of style that I like and I'm into, and that's like how I try to work myself. It's not so much of a like American style work, but like there's Texas strong style, but then there's like actual like strong style. So like I'd put myself, I'd be able to fit into like the strong style of work. If that was the case. So like that's the goal there for me anyway.
He fit in very well with that 90s Japanese wrestling. You know what I mean? He fit in because it was like at the time that whole strong style was very innovative in a way. You know what I mean? There was like a lot of stuff. Wrestling in the 1990s in America was very stale. I guess with it was very cartoonish, and him coming in, and that's when ECW was just taking over, I guess, in a way to say, hey, it doesn't have to be that lame. It does not have to be a cartoon. You know what I mean? So they started showcasing a lot of different guys that, were phenomenal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's watching it now, it's like, man, it seems like really, really over the top, but like watching it
some of it doesn't. I'm sorry to cut you off, but watching it now, some of it doesn't hold up, though.
No,
you know what I mean?
It's
with the exception of like, I go back and watch shows that they hit Danbury, Connecticut quite a few times. I live in Connecticut, which it's about an hour away. I went to every single show that they've been to in Connecticut, and maybe right over the border into New York, like White Plains in New York. I go back and watch those shows every so often. I'm like, man, this show's really not that great, but there's certain moments that really stick out.
Right. Yeah, it's just, it was like everything had to have some kind of extreme aspect to it. And it was almost taken away from the wrestling. So like when it got started, it was different, innovative. It was great to watch. It was edgy. So like that's what everyone wanted way back then. But man, it just seemed, watching it now, it just seemed like everything was just oversaturated with certain stuff. And it's almost kind of hard to watch a little bit.
It's like they were trying to overdo or outdo themselves each, the previous week. And I got to say that we're going to get back to talking about you in just a second. But I love talking about wrestling as a whole. So, we're here to learn more about you. But the same thing is with like the Attitude Era. I'm not sure what your opinion is about the Attitude Era. I never really thought it was that great, but everybody keeps begging for it, online. You see on social media, people, they want it back. But I go back every now and again and try to watch certain matches that I read about, like on pay-per-views or Raws or whatever, you know what I mean? I'm like, let me check this out. And I put this on, and it's just like some of it is just does not hold up still. You know what I mean? It's very boring, or there's just, oh my God, this is so corny.
Yeah, I think they want the edgy aspect. They want the blood stuff back for one. That's if they got the blood back, they probably wouldn't worry about the Attitude Era so much, because like they're missing that little that small edginess of wrestling is the color factor there. But you're talking about like the scantily clad dress, not only just like ring people, but the wrestlers in of itself. They want stuff like that back, and they don't necessarily want the actual era. There's just like small stuff in there that they like, but
it makes sense.
They don't really want the era back. It was cool watching it growing up because everything was just always it was new, it was different. But man, yeah, some of the stuff was just some of the stories was just boring. There's very select people that like to like just go back and watch now, because I don't just want to watch just random crap. So I want to watch stuff that I can actually see what's happening and learn from what I'm actually doing my studies and stuff. But while I like the Attitude Era, I wouldn't want it to come back.
Well, my favorite era was like the 1988 and 1989, those 2 years, because I think that's when I first got like hardcore into it. I got into wrestling in 1984, and then my very first show was 1988, and then it took me over like as far as like, it's like I was kind of mildly into it, and then my first show got me like, bam, I was obsessed with it going forward, kind of a thing. So, and then like for those 2 years, I thought they were very hot years, but the Attitude Era is just, you gotta watch it. Some of it's a little trashy. There could be good moments. I mean, granted, the wrestling roster itself is probably some of the best wrestlers you've seen out of that, the 1990s.
Yeah, I was not too big. not too big a fan of like some of the storylines and stuff like that because like. Especially as an adult now, when I'm thinking about it, like, ugh, that's not very.
No, I wouldn't want my kid watching it.
Yeah,
That's one thing. So,
not great. But yeah, I mean, I really like the later '90s work and stuff like that. So I was definitely super into it. I'm still into it now. I watch it kind of often. I don't really watch a lot of newer wrestling now, pretty much at all. But I'll catch some stuff here on YouTube, just like some certain wrestlers that I want to keep up with. But I watch a lot of older wrestling and stuff like that, mostly from late '90s, early 2000s ish.
I'm sort of in the same boat. I had this conversation actually last night at a show. One of the things is that I'm not necessarily into it. I record, say, all those shows, like the mainstream shows. I start them about 20, 30 minutes late, and then I fast forward through all the segments until I get to what I want. You know what I mean? The guys that I want, like Bryan Danielson. You know what I mean? Like the week that Danielson wrestled Timothy Thatcher, I was just like, that's probably one of the best TV matches on television in God knows how long. Those two are up here. You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that. I'm becoming less and less interested myself of the modern era of how, and I go back and watch stuff either before my time or around that time, even into the 90s, you know?
Yeah. When I was last year, I was getting back into the wrestling stuff. So I was watching a lot of AEW stuff that's on TV and just like trying to see what was just happening and new and stuff like that. But I was like, I got kind of bored with it after a minute because like certain stuff you could see the way that it wasn't very crisp. It was just changing and stuff. It wasn't very crisp. So I went back to start watching old Mid-South stuff and was just like, let me watch this old Mid-South stuff and get ready for what I'm trying to do now and get some of my steps in and work and my mental reps in because I could get a lot of ring work in. So here I am just trying to watch old Mid-South tapes and stuff like that to kind of get into it.
That was ECW before ECW, Mid-South or UWF, you know what I mean? So that was like probably what, 12, 15 years ahead of its time, really.
Yeah.
So,
you know. That was a big one for me there. So I was like, so that's why I bounced back between ECW and WCW now. I grew up on the Monday Night Wars anyway, but I was always more of a fan of the way ECW's and WCW rings sounded. So I always want to watch their matches more than watching WWE. So I don't know if that's just a weird thing to do, but it's just the sound. I enjoy the match way more hearing this specific sound. I don't know, from nostalgia reasons or it just sounds acoustically better for me, but it's the impact when everything happened. It kind of almost meant more whenever that sound would happen. It's like, oh shit, that was actually pretty good. I gotta wait to what's gonna happen next, and then boom, you hit another one. It's like, okay, cool. I'm really into this match now.
They have a different ring setup. You know what I mean? WCW / even back in the day, it was like wire cables with like a covering of some sort, and then WWF used straight ropes, and the rings looked completely different and sounded completely different. So I get what you're saying. I thought maybe I was the only one that kind of freaked out about that stuff.
WCW's ring, if I could have one of those, I would. That ring is just great. I'd bump it all day long. It just sounds so good to me. And then like ECW's one too is just, it's unsharpened. It's kind of gross sounding when you think about it. Like you actually listen to it directly, but it's unrefined. So it really fits. It really fits that little mystique for ECW.
Who knows how stable it was, though? That's
that's probably it. That's definitely probably
it. So you say you don't watch a lot of modern wrestling. Is there anything that you do keep up on, even independents? Or anything?
Besides like New Japan, I watched AEW Dark more so because now I see people that I've met on there, or like I get like
Maybe people you worked with or whatever.
Yeah. So like Shane Taylor was one. He was on there. Shane Taylor and JD were recently on there, and I worked both of them.
I was going to ask you about working with Shane Taylor. Shane Taylor was a guest on here like 2 years ago. He was a great guy. He came out here speaking a lot about positivity and messages and stuff like that. And I absolutely loved the podcast I did with him. I wanted to ask you about working with him. He's full of positivity just from that 1 hour and a half that I spent talking to him.
Yeah, I when I first got into it, man, I seen Shane. He was kind of like just got 6 belts all over him and stuff like that. So when I was getting into it, he was pretty prolific in there, and just like watching him kind of go around and do these things, and the baddest of all time, I was like, oh shit, this dude's tough. So I was like, man, eventually I want to, some odd few years down the line, I want to work this guy. And then lo and behold, it was like almost 9 months later, here we go, and I was like, I got a call that, hey, you want to work Shane? I was like, sure, absolutely. I mean, good dude. Yeah, cool dude, man. We hit it off pretty well. Talked quite a bit that whole entire time. And it was funny because at that time, he had been warned about working with me, which we both laughed at. Was hysterically because I got this deal about me being unsafe. Right, it's a slur thing.
Before you go forward, I did see that on Cage Match, like I'm doing research, but obviously it's the internet. You know what I mean? You don't know what to believe. And obviously I was not going to bring that up to you because I'm going to show some respect to you, my guest. I'm not sitting here to talk shit or cause trouble, but I saw that. I say, why do people put that stuff? You know what I mean? But people say that about a lot of people. You know what I mean? It's professional wrestling. It might, and then 30, 40, 50 years ago, people wouldn't be saying the same thing. It's just called being a professional wrestler.
Yeah, it's the spot in and of itself. Now, nowadays they consider it super dangerous, but I wasn't taking liberties out of nobody, and it was just like the way that spot just kind of like occurred. There's like a multiple layers to it that make it just like way worse than what it is, and when it was blowing up, I'm a heel. I'm mostly a heel. So, and it's not my real name is not on my social media, but people take it as a whole deal. Like this is just like how I am, and like okay, I'm gonna run with this anyway. So I was just digging into the whole deal, like I normally would act if I don't know, just if something devastating like that happened to me. What would I normally say if I was being an asshole? And I would just go on with that and just kept with that. So the people who knew me or knew what would happen that day, no different. But if these like troll accounts try to get at you, they'll probably eat it your way. But I've spent years piloting, trolling people and like bullying people like that. Anyway, talking wrestling type shit to powerlifters for years. So like none of that stuff ever bothered me. So I was already used to it. So I just went back and just like I'd say something here and there and just like forget about it. And like they just go off and so let them all just kind of run off and just but yeah, it was just a very interesting moment. And that kind of like shifted my career a tad bit. Because not only just like now everybody knows my name, but it was not for like the best reasons, but it was actually pretty decent. It got me the match with Shane, so I can't really like knock it, can't take it back. I don't, it's not anything I can take back or I would. And so when I actually got to work Shane and like he was telling me about it, and I was just dying laughing. He was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because he saw the deal. He saw the deal. He commented on it before too. That's homeboy's fault. But we were just laughing about it for a good like hour.
The internet wrestling world is a very interesting place, is it not?
It's something else. Yeah, I don't even care for it now at this point. I wasn't really into it because like when I first started, I wasn't like I just wasn't like interacting with it very much. I got social medias all over the place. I've been all over them, but I just kind of was like sitting back and just watching stuff the entire time. Like I was trying to build my brand and what. whatnot. And man, just they're just awful. But they're not. Most of the time that these things get started by people who don't have a face to their account, so you don't know what they look like, you don't know who they are, but you get this kind of shitstorm of just them talking stuff, and like if somebody likes it here or there, or somebody reposts it, it gets to this person, and it kind of just goes downhill from there.
It's funny that you say stuff like that, because it's like I've gotten into arguments, like say on Twitter and social media, and then they start stalking your pictures and stuff like that, and then reposting pictures of you and your wife and stuff. This has happened to me personally.
Yep.
It's like that's when I needed to say, it's like I need to step away, literally.
Yeah.
I'm just going to concentrate on promoting my brand, this podcast, and not sit there and argue with people. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not worth it, because I don't want that shit to kind of like affect my family whatsoever. You know what I mean?
So before I got started wrestling, I pulled off all my personal pictures off of Twitter.
Yeah. Makes sense.
I changed off all my stuff that I was doing and branded it just wrestling stuff. My Instagram, I made a whole separate one for just wrestling, but my Instagram, although it has some personal stuff on it, it's not very often. And I won't post any stuff like that because I already had issues dealing with that apparel thing. But now more so, I was getting all kinds of death threats when that video happened. So like that doesn't bother me, because one, nobody ever in my life has ever said anything crazy to me in my face.
Right.
Two, if that ever did, they know what happened, and I don't do a lot of talking in person. So like it's ridiculous. These people say it doesn't bother me, but I got a wife and kid here that I got to take care of it and stuff like that. And when I explain this to her, and she's just like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's what happens. So I won't post much about them and share stuff. And, it's fine by me.
Mm-hmm.
She's super private anyway, and doesn't post much on social media. So I'm not going to try to put her in those kind of situations.
Exactly.
And whatnot. But me, as who I am on social media, the same person I am in the ring, like I'm gonna go fly off the mouth. I'm gonna just, I'm gonna do my thing, and I'm not gonna hold back in saying certain stuff. And I think some people are expecting me to hold back because I'm like prolific in the scene at this point. And like, I'm supposed to act like somebody's my boss or something like that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not changing anything that I've done beforehand or anything who I am. If I get a big contract for something, sure. They tell me not to, sure. But at this point, who I am as a character, who I am as a person, they're the same thing. So if somebody says a certain thing, I'm going to reply a certain way. That's just how it's going to be, and that's how it is. And like, they expect me to not do that and like bend at their will, and that's not going to happen. Not happening.
It's a shame. It's a shame, especially considering the state of the world today. People are so worried about, this guy came at me, or you got to be careful what you say on social media. It's just, and I don't want to turn it in political or any of that other kind of crap, in this conversation, but it's like, it's kind of shame how things, like, people take things so seriously. It's like these keyboard warriors just like, oh, this guy said this back at me and he should be canceled. You know what I mean? The whole cancel culture thing. And it's like, we're not as personalities allowed to stand up for ourselves in a way, but they can blast at us.
Yeah. I do choose my words very carefully. And I kind of almost, in a sense, belittle the person that's trying to speak at me a certain way and make them feel very stupid. Because with what I say, they really can't be used against me in terms of like, he's saying something that's like cancelable. So you can try all you want, but if you go read the conversation, it's like, well, he kind of put you in a place. So like, well, I'm not going to cancel this person for what they just said to you, because you kind of deserved it. So, I make sure I choose what I say kind of carefully, but however, I don't like hold back in what the point I'm trying to get across when I do it. So
it's the difference from when we grew up to today. It's like the internet trolls are, it seems like they're in, I don't want to say, I mean, not necessarily, but for lack of a better term, they're in control in a way. You know what I mean? Like, because anybody that they're coming at, if you say something the wrong way and, you get your account shut down and you're canceled, or you know what I mean, you're not going to get a gig or something to that effect.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's dumb because when you let them do certain things and let them win and kind of control that direction of the narrative or where it's going,
right?
That's when you lose the aspect of it, and you get that pathway of getting canceled, more or less. You kind of just got to get in the front running of it and take control of how you put it in the direction you want it to go in. I don't backtrack. None of that stuff, not backtracking stuff, right? So that's where most people get in trouble. They start backtracking or they say certain stuff and backtrack. I'm not backtracking. So make sure whatever I say is with conviction. And it's like there may be holes in it here and there, but it's usually stuff I stand by and I get my point across. And that's what I try to keep in my hindsight is. As long as I get my point across, and it's you can misconstrue it all you want, but if I get my point across, you're probably gonna look stupid at the end of this deal because I thought about what I wanted to say, and the first initial rough draft of it might have been really, really bad, really, really bad. But by the time I get to the final draft of it and stuff like that, it's like, oh, well, you suck, and now you know it. So
I can't tell you how many times I've typed out stuff and then had to hit the back button, and it's been like, no, I'm about to get my account blocked or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
it's funny. People DM me certain stuff, really crazy shit. And I'll reply back with some off the wall stuff and block them. You can't reply. I'll see them start typing, and I'll have their reply. I'll send it, and they start typing. I'll block them. You can't send anything back. I laugh my ass off for just doing stuff like that. I got it from a friend of mine, and they told me about it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. So they start typing back. You want to start because they want to be a part of what you're doing. That's all they want. They want to be a part of what you're doing. So they want you to treat them as a part of what you're doing. And I'm like, no. So I'll give them, some crazy ass reply, and as soon as I start typing, I'll block them, and then never hear from them again. It's hilarious to me.
I love it. We're gonna get back to your wrestling career. All right. Let's talk about working Barrett Brown in Metroplex Wrestling.
It was a very interesting match because that was like, I guess, almost my first kind of strong style match, more or less. And working Barrett was it was fun. It was definitely interesting because technically he's the vet and stuff like that, but goddamn, I'm like 3 times the size. So normally you don't really see too much of a competitive match in those kind of like statures of size wise, but I like to be able to entertain people, and I don't want to be boxed into a deal that is working the same kind of like type of work all the time. So at that particular point, I was almost like stop listening to certain things and just stop with the box stuff, and I pulled out my standing moonsault on him for the first time. So, I got to do a little bit of extra stuff, work a little bit different way, and probably at that point was one of my best matches that I had. Was very interesting, very crazy. Story was really good. So it's one of those matches I kept going back with and kind of like reviewing and just like seeing what could I have done different, and make it essentially better. And since that point, I have every match I've had is something a little bit different. Just kind of getting my feet kind of like developed into how I actually want to work, and that match was like one of the turning points for me that let me do that.
Cool. He's a former NWA Junior Heavyweight Champion as well. So props to him.
Yeah, big on that. Yeah, it's cool. because I want to say I just seen a match of his in New Japan, and I was like, oh yeah, man, that dude's pretty good. And then next thing I know, I was like, oh, here you got Barrett Brown. I was like, oh well, shit. That was cool. Yeah,
I'm not wearing it now, but 99% of the time I'm wearing my New Japan hoodie. Literally. Right. And for a lot of these broadcasts, you'll see me wearing it, but today I don't have it on for some reason. Yeah. So the weather's up here today, so I don't need it. Yes. But I'm a huge New Japan fan as well. So, you know, and I actually get complimented on it quite a bit. The first day I walked into my new job wearing it, a lot of the young kids were like, "Oh, you like wrestling?"
Right.
So it's like they heard of New Japan, but they all watch. You know, they only know like Kenny Omega and stuff like that. So
yeah, and you know, everybody's got like their little goals too. My goals, I want to go to Japan, and New Japan.
That's awesome.
Is one of the places I want to go. You know, stomp around in for a little bit. Yep. So. Just trying to not only like develop my style to kind of mold in between both U.S. and Japan, but also be able to, you know, hold my own when I go over there and stuff like that. Because I'm sure things will be a tad bit different.
Just a little.
Just a little bit. But now at this point, I feel I'm really comfortable in my ring work and my psychology and stuff like that.
That's great.
To do certain stuff, even on the fly, myself. So I feel real comfortable in doing that. And like. If I got the call today, I'd be gone tomorrow. So
that's awesome. I guess ultimately, probably New Japan would probably be your ultimate goal, correct? I mean, that's the biggest promotion out there right now.
Yeah. So that's definitely my. You know, if I fall somewhere else, I'm not gonna complain about it. But that's definitely where I want to land is New Japan.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up questions. Like, I mean, obviously, there's many other promotions out there, like Noah and All Japan, which at one time, All Japan and New Japan, I would say almost equal as far as, you know, competitors, kind of like how WWF and WCW was at the time, but All Japan has seemed to, like, fallen off really bad. Yeah. I still watch it quite a bit, All Japan, but it's not on the same level. You know, it's quite weird, actually. But, you know, there's a lot of other organizations out there. Is there other, you know, do you have any others that you, I mean, wouldn't mind working with?
Noah's definitely one on my radar, too, if we're talking about just Japan-wise. But other than that, AEW, Impact, MLW, those would be some stuff, too, that I would pique some interest into. But, you know, I was definitely super into All Japan. But like I said, it's fallen off at this point a little bit more, and I don't know. I like the way New Japan just kind of like does certain aspects of things. Noah falls in right behind that for me. Yeah. So I, you know, I wouldn't complain about going anywhere over there because I'd be so excited just to be over there at this point. But after I kind of established myself, you know, a little bit more, but I definitely would rather land over either New Japan or Noah for sure. But if we're talking about something over the States, don't get me wrong, WWE would probably be, you know, obviously the best of everything, but
I think that's everyone's goal that gets into, I mean, everybody's dream, I should say, you know, as a kid, you know, I mean, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong.
It's not so much mine. It's just, you know, there's a lot of stuff that happened with Vince McMahon and whatnot.
Yes. Going on I don't agree, but I mean, I don't agree with his lifestyle. You know what I mean? He's you know, but
also just watching the stuff he's done on camera. It's not really very. I'm not really. That doesn't work for me. It's just not something I'm really into. And then like the way the talent's treated. You know, you want to enjoy where you're working, right? So like that's kind of another thing. I want to enjoy where I'm working, and just the aspects of just like stuff I've heard and the things going around and the way things are. Doesn't sound very enjoyable to me, and like that's part of the problem. Like I just want to wrestle. I want to wrestle.
One of the things
doing it.
I'm sorry. One of the things is that, you know, I've heard, and I get 100% what you're saying. You're 100% correct and valid in feeling that way, because if I would work somewhere, I'd want to feel like I'm wanted and that I'm, you know, be treated well as an employee. You know what I mean? That's in my day job. That's how I feel, you know? So I've heard things have changed and morale is up since
Right. Yeah.
but he's come back and he's only doing certain things. God knows how much is actually true. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I see his light is on in the office in Stamford, Connecticut, from what I've heard. So as people drive by at night. So and rumor is that he's not going to be there that much longer. He's going to be staying there just until a supposed sale that's going to be taking part in roughly 3 months, according to sources that have written about it.
Right.
But like I said, God knows how much is true. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't believe everything you read on the internet. So I'm just going by what I've read on the internet. So, but like I said, there's many other places that someone such as yourself that can work and make a decent living, such as, like you said, MLW or Impact or AEW, etc.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not gonna complain if I go somewhere where I'm wanted and stuff like that. It's not WWE. Definitely not with that. Because WWE isn't my goal, and it never was. Granted, if they called me and said, "Hey, we want you to come up here and try and give you a contract," I'd absolutely do it. However, it's just not my goal to do that. I don't want to be. I'm not somebody who wants to strive to be like a John Cena or The Rock. That's not really my thing. I just kind of want to. It's not want to say I want to just be mediocre or anything like that.
But, you make a comfortable living, maybe.
Right. I want to be able to wrestle, do some things, travel a little bit. I got a small goal. I want to get an action figure made of myself.
That's amazing.
That I can give to my kid.
That's amazing. I love that.
My kid, right? So I got really big into powerlifting. I got a shirt made from this big company. They they sponsored me. They did this thing they made me my own shirt. They don't do that very often to anybody, especially even their own athletes. But I got one, and they special made one for my kid. Right, so that means way more to me than most of the stuff that I did at powerlifting. So same thing with the wrestling. I want to get to a point where I get an action figure made of myself that I can give to my kid, because you can't just get it's something that you can't get taken away from you at all. You made it to this point where you were established enough to get this type of figure, and now your kid can play with this action figure yourself, which I think is just really cool for me. And aside that, the only other small little thing that I would want to do is be in the Royal Rumble. If that was WWE wise, that would be the only one thing that I'd want to do, is to be in the Royal Rumble, is to get established enough to where I might be a surprise entrance in the Royal Rumble, and that was a thing. I don't know how that would happen, I don't know how it would work, but
that part doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because it's they pulled in. They pulled Mil Mascaras in there. You know what I mean? Right. Or did they pull Carlos Colon in there one year? I think that's possible. I think
so. It's one of those things that's just one of those kind of life goals. If I was ever to do anything with WWE, that would be it. That would be the one thing I'd want to do. Is that.
Well, one of the things is, I'm going to tell you now that the Royal Rumble is my favorite event of the year. It literally is, because that starts the road to WrestleMania, which to me, it's the two biggest events of professional wrestling in the United States. Okay. You know what I mean? I don't watch a lot of WWE these days. Like I said, I make it a 20-minute show basically out of a 3 or 4 hour program that they're doing. I watch the pay-per-views in their entirety, because they're treated like actual events. The Royal Rumble is actually the only event my wife will actually sit down and watch with me, because she does not like wrestling, but she likes the Royal Rumble, because it reminds her of a bond with her and her father from back in the day and watching professional wrestling. And she'll sit there and she'll actually take my notes for me as I'm about to talk about the Royal Rumble on the podcast. So as we're talking, so I think that's, for somebody that doesn't like wrestling, other than maybe wrestling from the 1980s, you know what I mean? She likes the memories and stuff like that. But I think that's awesome. The Royal Rumble is my favorite event.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one, and there's just things that happen to it that are you don't normally get in a regular match. So I can definitely dig it. My wife and kid, they don't really watch wrestling much either, but over Christmas break, we were watching some old stuff. I was trying to find some the King of the Ring matches and stuff like that, and some Stone Cold stuff and Bret Hart stuff, and actually Mankind matches, because he's probably one of the best King of the Ring performers, not actually in the King of the Ring thing. So we went back, watched a bunch of that stuff, and I showed them the 316 promo and all that stuff, and we were definitely into watching the pay-per-views. We went back and watched like the TLC matches, Hell in a Cell, and King of the Ring stuff, and like it was just fun to rewatch those things. But man, I could not watch the segments of story stuff now. I'll catch stuff like the Bloodline thing on YouTube and stuff.
That's the only thing I like. That's the only thing I like right now.
other than that, I try to watch it. It's like 3-something hours, right? So I try to sit there and watch it, and like, man, like the first thing was just like nothing but talking and no wrestling. That was the last. This has happened like maybe last, I don't know, April or May or something like that. I could not. I haven't watched it since. Can't do it. It just it doesn't work for me because like I want to watch wrestling, and like I forgot that that's what they do, and like there's not a lot of wrestling, and it was just it was terrible.
Like I said earlier, I'm a traditional wrestling fan, so I like to watch wrestling. You know what I mean? I like to catch the in-ring promos or the ringside interviews. When it comes to WWE modern, current WWE, you know, the Bloodline literally is the whole thing, and the whole thing with Sami Zayn, the whole storyline, I think, unfolded beautifully. Literally been fast-forwarding through everything and watching those segments. Go to the next match or segment. I'm like, I literally give it about 30 seconds. I'm like, all right, this sucks. And then fast forward, you know what I mean? It's like, I make it, my wife laughs at me as I'm sitting in bed watching it late at night on a Monday, fast forwarding through everything. I'm like, I can't do it. She knows that, you know, I could write a better show, and I'm just a podcaster or fan. You know what I mean? It's aggravating, but honestly, they're trying to sell advertisements. They're trying to sell, they're trying to hype up pay-per-views. So, it's like the circus.
Well, it's a show. It's an actual show now.
Yeah.
It's not an event. It's not a wrestling thing. It's a show. It's a TV show now at this point.
If you compare if you compare WWE to a show that you work, okay, you notice that you watch WWE. I mean, but the shows that you work probably have more reaction from the crowd than the crowd working or at a WWE event on a Monday night. You get bored. Yes.
They're there for forever. They're there forever. And you know, even I've been on some longer wrestling shows, but like even around a little over 2 hours is almost too much. Yeah. People just get bored. You know, I don't want to I'm up there all goddamn day, you know, getting ready before the show, but you know, if I was sitting there watching this stuff and they're just dragging on between what's happening between and all this, it gets boring.
Yeah,
it gets boring.
2 weeks ago, I think they were doing the Elimination Chamber qualifier matches, and I gotta say, the Seth Rollins and Chad Gable wrestled each other, and it was the first television match I saw. Yeah, those two wrestle each other, and they went about, I think it was about 10 minutes or so. Phenomenal match. Yeah. And they put it on TV. Phenomenal match. And that was the first match on the show, mind you. The rest of the show just down the shitter, literally. So, and I sat here fast forwarding through the rest, but I'm lucky they put that match on first. You know, it was a very, very, very good match.
I like first matches like that. I've been in first matches like that, and you know, getting the crowd up and into it and stuff like that. Yep. To me, it lets you set the tone for the rest of the show, and hopefully you'd like every other match on the card to one up the match beforehand all the way up to the main event where they can kind of peak and just like boom, you know. And not everybody thinks like that, but like that's the kind of goal for me. Like, you know, I want to put on a good show and I make sure it's you know, it's top tier. If I get put in the first match, I'm kind of showing out a little bit more.
You gotta make sure that crowd pops and gets into the show. That's what the first match is for, to hype up the crowd.
Yeah. So it's I like those. I like the matches before the intermission, and I like the main event. Those are my favorite slots. I can work in between wherever, but you get my best work out of those 3 slots specifically for sure. I'll do a little bit more depending on where I'm at, you know.
Recently you captured and this is October of 2022. You became the ACW Television Champion by defeating James Claxton. Why don't
Yeah.
you? This is your first championship that you've won.
It was, yeah. First championship there. I was also first Moonshine Man. Couldn't make the champ at the time, but well, I think he got COVID or something like that, so he couldn't make it. And poor James, they was like, all right, cool. This is gonna be you. So, man, it wasn't a very long match, but it was very intense to say the least. And now it's because it's Heart of Texas Pro Wrestling is now Hot Pro Wrestling. And the ACW part of it. So now I'm definitely the Hot Network champion. Because the television, they don't have television anymore. So like they're just updating the things.
The company themselves does not have television, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's not on television, right? So it's not like an actual like deal, but they got their own network now, so they have their own streaming service now, which is great. Which I think is something that if you're not putting your stuff on IWTV or any kind of streaming service, having your own network is very essential. If you actually do more than one show every couple months, so now that they have that, I'm the Hot Network champion, right? So. It's been great. Having that match was awesome. The crowd was in this event bar called Come and Take It Live. They have like concerts and stuff in, and it's a smaller bar, but it was a very intense show to say the least. Because like there was a couple of death matches for the show too, but probably the biggest pop was for me winning that title. Aside from the death match with all the light bulbs shit flying all over the place, so
people like craziness, right? I mean, maybe not necessarily us, but people like the craziness. Yeah,
and it was intense because like all that whole Chris Carter powerbomb thing happened a month prior to that, but that day it got onto a different website and was blowing up. From that Friday to that show on Saturday, right, to all the way through Monday, it was going all over the place. Where everybody was seeing it at that point. So like, it was just like I was just going all different directions because that show I was getting like ripped apart all different places. But I was like talking shit to all these people at the same time, and then I had to do this show, and they gave me James Claxton, 6'6", 300 pounds, whatever. Big dude, and we had a pretty tough match. And then at the end, I powerbombed the shit out of him. So like nobody was really expecting that to kind of happen, and then I picked his big ass up and slammed him. So that was a big ordeal because like I said, like that was blowing up, and like the promoter was like, "All right, well, hey, can you powerbomb?" And I was like, "Probably, sure. I'm sure I probably could." So I yanked his big ass up and dropped him. So crowd went super nuts for it because. What we did was we had that Hot Anarchy show where that happened. I was in their battle royal deal. They banned my powerbomb from Heart of Texas. However, when it's HOT Anarchy, there's no rules in Anarchy, so you can't necessarily ban something because there's no rules. So this was what was funny is. They banned the move for Heart of Texas, right? I made a whole big ordeal about it. Moonshine, talked about it and stuff like that. And then when we got to the show, it was like, well, it's Hot Anarchy, and I did it anyway. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. It doesn't matter because there's no rules. So I was just super hyped about doing that whole match. And then when I was done, I was like, they were all like, I thought you couldn't powerbomb it, but I was like, yeah, you can. At Heart of Texas. However, this is Anarchy, and there's no rules. And I was just like super all just intense about it and stuff like that. So, good show. It was a good match. And this is a pretty cool little deal about Hot Pro Wrestling. They have their different styles of stuff. Hot Pro Wrestling has like it's more kid-friendly, PG-ish type shows. Anarchy is for like their deathmatch style stuff, and it's a little bit more intense, adult-wise, and I fit in a little bit more on the Anarchy side of that, because my intensity allows me to cuss a lot more and just be more myself, and I just fly off the handle with whatever I'm saying, and just it works a lot better for me. So the hot anarchy side of it definitely works more for me.
It's funny because I've worked with family-friendly organizations first, and then I go to or work aside with another organization, and they're like, yeah, you can pretty much say what you want with the exception of this, blah blah blah. And then I'm just like, I don't know how. Like, I didn't know how to work that into my into me being a straight play-by-play guy or something like that. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it's man, when I go to places that are more killer friendly, I normally don't talk as much because I'm not used to not cussing, and I cuss a lot.
I got potty mouth. For lack of a better term, I got a lot of potty mouth.
when I'm in my intense
life
moments, it's just when I'm intense, it just whatever I'll say the first thing comes out of my mouth, and it just kind of it's bad. So there's a few places that I go to where they let stuff like that happen, and it's fine. And I'm just terrible to people. They'll say certain stuff, and I'm just ripping them apart, just all over the place. And like I'm making people piss themselves and stuff like that because I'm just terrifying. And I've had people like they'll say some certain stuff, and then I'll look over at them, and they'll just like, oh, okay, never mind, and they won't say it. It's just the funniest fucking thing to me. Because like some of the times they haven't seen me before when I'm over there, but now I've kind of like established myself. They've seen what I've done to people, and they're like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna say anything to this person. And it's the funniest thing to me. I'll get some of these things on camera too. Most of the people record my match, and like I'll get some of these reactions on camera. And they're just the funniest thing because you can see them and like, oh no, I'm just kidding. I don't want any problems. It just cracks me the hell up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
For a second there, so pardon me. You dropped out for just a second. One of my questions is there that you mentioned IWTV before. I watch a lot of IWTV. So, what's your opinion and what do you watch on there? Like if you,
there's some local promotions that'll get put on there that I'll watch. More or less, it's almost kind of like supporting like the local brand type deal. But I've caught if there's like a certain wrestler that I'm looking for, I'll try to look up some certain stuff and I'm like, oh, this is on IWTV, so okay, cool. So I go watch it on there. Like Jacob Fatu is probably one that I'll scrounge around for. If anything, that's one person that I really want to work out at this point. I've almost knocked a bunch of the people off my list, this beginning list that I had.
Really, that's great.
I wasn't expecting to work, so soon. So Jacob Fatu would be one of the ones that I really want to work because I feel like we almost have a similar style, but it's a little bit different.
I can see it. I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
He some things see do. I can do that. I just haven't done more or less. I'm not sure if I even need to do them. Right? Granted, don't get me wrong, they're great stuff, and when he does it, it's amazing. But it's not but he already does it, so it's not something I need to do, right? So it's not something I need to do or work on or try to be better at because he's already doing it. There's already a Jacob Fatu. I don't want to be a second Jacob Fatu. That's not what I want to do. So I want to try to stick to stuff that whatever I'm doing, everybody else isn't doing. So that way it was a little bit more different. I'm okay, cool. I want to see this person wrestle because they do something I haven't really actually seen. Like if you watch the whole wrestling card and like most of the matches look the same, it's because they all watch the same stuff. They don't actually try to do anything different. I don't want to do that. I've seen it happen. I'm like, wow, this match just looks like this other match and this other match. It's boring. Nobody wants to come back for that.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because last night I was worked a show, and I don't want to say anything bad about the company I worked for because they're a great company. But it's like, how many times is somebody going to do a super kick or the stomp on the mat before they do the super kick, a la Shawn Michaels? I saw that in at least 3 matches last night. Okay,
yeah,
I saw the same lead up to a dive or. At least 2 times. I'm just like, come on, guys. You guys, this is indie wrestling, I guess you could say. You got to pay attention to the other matches so that you can change it up because you don't want to do the same thing that somebody else is doing. You need to make the variety. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's the problem with a lot of the workers now is they're stuck in doing and calling the match as is and doing that and not communicating with everybody else. Like last night I had a tag match and it was the main event and there was 2 other tag matches on the card. So it was like, okay, what are you doing for your opener? Okay, what are you doing for your opener? And ours was just completely different. Like the other 2, I think one of them maybe had a double down. We didn't have a double down, right? So like, and I hate the super kick. Don't get me wrong.
You can see it 367 times by the 3rd match.
It's so stupid. However, if it makes sense to do one, I've put it into certain places. Like I took one last night. Something was happening. I was getting distracted. I got a knee to the stomach, and the other partner super kicked me while I'm on the apron, and I fell off the apron. I took a bump off the apron. Right. So like this part of the story makes it more dramatic whenever there's something happening into the lead up into the story. But just super kicking for super kick's sake is it's the dumbest thing, and I hate it. I hate it.
It's wrestling today. You know, it's such a popular maneuver. I mean, if you want really play close enough attention, the Canadian Destroyer is probably a close second. And see, I can see by the look at your face that you know I'm right.
It is. Like there's 2 moves that I won't take and receive. It's a super kick and a fucking Canadian Destroyer. Like I'll never take one of those. I'm not doing it. I'm never giving one. And the super kick, if it's just like, something out, and I'll super kick you here. And I'm like, no, you're not doing that. If it's not going to be something where like it's going to be prevalent to the story, I'm not doing it. I hate it because you can see a super kick on the other 2 matches that are happening.
Exactly.
But like I've done maybe 3 super kicks, right? But they're all really very intricate to the story. One being that I was at Metroplex and I've been terrorizing everybody, and I normally hop in the ring over the top rope. So in doing so, the angle that I did it, I wasn't able to see my opponent, and he super kicked me off guard. It was pretty because it was right the belly and all that stuff. Jump in the ring, stand up, boom, get super kicked the side of the head, and everyone was like, "Oh shit, this guy's been beating people up left and right, and now he just got super kicked." Like I'm just like, I didn't fall straight to the ground. I started selling over. He climbs up to the top, does the big frog splash while I'm kind of on a knee on top of me. And everybody was going nuts for this deal because it was something they haven't seen, and it was very intricate to the story because it made sense and like it would work properly. It wasn't just some random ass deal that happened. And it was probably one of my coolest ones that I've ever taken. And aside from the other 2, the one I just told you about, and then just some other deal that happened maybe like 3 weeks ago, were the only like super kicks I've ever like allowed happen in one of my matches. That's it. That's it. And it's all stuff that I was okay with. Like, yeah, we can do this. This is something you can probably do this here. This will work. And like something I can't just. So like, I'm gonna super kick you here. I'm like, no, you're not doing that. That's not happening.
Yeah, see, it makes sense to not. It makes more sense to not do it because everybody wants to do it these days. It's. I'm going to ask you about 2 more matches before we, we're going to wrap it up in a little while. But tell me, you worked Madman Fulton and JD Griffey in a match. Tell me about what it was like. Yeah. Madman Fulton is a beast, man. So tell me about this match.
Man, it was so before that show, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're going to get Fulton." And I was like, "Who the fuck is that?" Because they didn't say Badman Fulton; they just said Fulton. I thought it was just some local dude. Because I've been wrestling other local guys around there. So, aside from like, I think Barrett Brown, I think was the only other, I've been just wrestling other local guys there. So I was like, who the fuck's Fulton? He was like, Madman Fulton. I was like, oh, what? Okay, that's interesting. And then later on, they were like, oh, it's going to be a triple threat. Well, first of all, the next show that he played the trailer for, it said it was a triple threat. And then I was told it was a triple threat. And I was like, oh shit! All right, well, cool. And I wrestled JD the week before at Top Pro Wrestling, and that was the first time we worked. So that was it went very well. And then meeting Fulton. He was a cool dude, very tall guy, obviously, and it was very interesting to say the least. The finish probably one of my favorite finishes that kind of happened because of the way it didn't make me look weak or anything like that, but it was very intricate in how it developed, and the crowd was super into it, which is one of my main things that I try to get a point across in my matches. But also, I powerbomb Fulton, so that was one of the things. They were asking me about doing something. I was like, yeah, I could. Nobody really knows about my power thing that much, and like how actually strong I am. So he was like, I don't want to really do this deal, but like, I was like, I could just pick you up straight off the ground. He was like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, I'll just fucking roll you up and just pick you up off the ground. And he was like, can you show me what you mean? So I put him on the ground, rolled him up, and I yanked him up in the back, and he was, oh my fucking God. Like, I just, dead weight, just yanked him off the ground like it was nothing. He's like, nobody's ever done that to me before in my life. And it was just, I just was dying laughing because, like, oh, this is what I do. Like, this is, you don't weigh that fucking much, man. I was yanking up things heavier than you for years.
Tell me about working Mac. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, so when it happened in the match, it took everybody by surprise. It was the first time I did that style of powerbomb. And I like doing this one way more now anyway. But yeah, I yanked him up and nobody was expecting that to happen. So it was a pretty cool little moment in that part of the match.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Is that available online? That's available online? Maybe.
Metroplex Wrestling posted it on their, not only is it on the network, but they posted it on their Facebook page. So it should be up on. It should be up on there.
I'm gonna look for it because I like Madman Fulton from what I've seen in Impact and stuff like that. So yeah, very talented guy.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Tell me about working Max the Impaler. This is probably. I'm judging that this was a very interesting match. I've seen them several times in the last probably year or so, 6 to 8 months.
I want to mark out for a sec because Max is probably my favorite match, just as a whole, because I feel like me and Max are very similar in nature. And, even almost character-wise, we're almost like the same type of character, more or less. Okay. Max has a very distinct look to them, very distinct look. And when I was watching them work and doing other matches, we have a very similar style, like just brutally beating people up. Very similar stuff. So when I first got there, it was really standoffish. Well, first of all, I got the call and they were like, hey, you're working Max. And I was like, what? It was like 24 hours or so before like the show was happening because like this person Abaddon got hurt, and Sky Blue got hurt. And it was like, all right, well, you're working Max. And I was like, what? Okay. All right. That's random, but sure. But, they trusted me enough to work Max for their show. So I want to make sure it was good, but I got there and like, man, it was like really kind of standoffish just because like, I've never met Max never met me. And we're just kind of just like sitting right next to each other, not saying a goddamn thing for the longest time. And then it was like, all right, so we kind of start talking a little bit. Max is super cool, super laid back and chill. And most of the time, whenever I do certain matches, I won't do certain bumps and I won't do certain things because like this don't make sense. And, it needs to make sense. But Max is super strong. Used to be, in that game in strongman, and took a couple of different like bumps and like I was like, maybe I could do this, get something, out of the crowd and do this. Because like they always expect me to do all the destruction to people. They don't really see stuff like happen to me very often. Excuse me. Okay. So I came up with a couple of different things, and it was a great match for me because overall it not only just it helped like my character development and how I do my in-ring work stuff and my crowd work stuff, but the way I just like put matches together and thought about it. So me and Max's match is probably one of my favorites for sure.
Cool. Cool. I'm gonna have to look for that. Check it out. So, we're gonna wrap it up, and I want to say thank you very much. For, we went way longer than I expected us to go today. So, I enjoyed our conversation. I invite you back anytime you really want to come back and just,
Absolutely.
even if you just want to talk about wrestling in general, not necessarily about just stuff. So, I invite you back. So, why don't you give the your information out where everybody can find you on your socials, and I know you have a YouTube channel.
I do, yeah. So you can find me mainly on Instagram at World Breaker Savage. You can find me on Facebook, same deal, Brick Savage on that one. Twitter's Brick Savage 7, or Brick Savage 7, and most of the time you can see me post about my matches on Facebook. So if you want to follow me on that one, you'll get all of my stuff updated. If you follow my Instagram, I'll post it on my stories a lot. There. So a lot of the shows I'm doing around in Houston, Austin, Dallas. I've got a show here February 18th at Metroplex, their Texas Rumble. February 19th at Hot Pro Wrestling, that's in Axtell. And then February 22nd, I'm actually headed to Vegas for Dark Arts Entertainment. So that'll be a cool one.
All right. All right. I want to say thank you very much for coming on. I want to urge everybody to go follow all those platforms at Brick Savage and check them out, especially on YouTube. You're going to find some really interesting stuff and fun stuff. I really enjoyed what I saw. I want to thank you again. Seriously, thank you. And like I said, you can come back anytime.
Much appreciated. I absolutely would love to come back. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.